Hey, what is up, you guys? So, today we're going to a dark place, like a really, really dark place. I was scrolling online the other night, just falling down a rabbit hole like I always do, and I started looking into the creepiest places in the world. And oh my God, you guys, I'm not talking about your average haunted house with a few ghost stories. I'm talking about places that have this energy, this heavy, dark history that just seeps out of the ground. Places where the air feels thick and the silence is deafening. It's the kind of stuff that honestly keeps me up at night, and I just knew I had to share it with you guys. These locations are infamous, They're known all over the world for their genuinely eerie atmospheres and the absolutely chilling stories that come with them. We're talking about places with histories of tragedy, isolation, and just unspeakable things. And the stories that have come out of them from people who have actually been there are just, wow. It's one thing to read about it, but to imagine actually standing in these places, I can't even. It's like stepping into a real-life horror movie. And I am both terrified and completely fascinated. I feel like we're about to go on a journey together, and I'm kind of scared, not gonna lie. So, buckle up, get your blankets, turn down the lights, maybe grab a snack, or don't, you might lose your appetite. We're about to dive deep into 5 of the most unsettling, creepy, and straight-up haunted places on Earth. As we go through them, I seriously want you to think about it and let me know in the comments down below. Would you dare to visit any of these places? Like, for real? Be honest, because I don't know if I could. All right, let's do this. Okay, so first up, we're going to Mexico. Just south of Mexico City, there's this series of canals, and hidden deep within them is an island. But it's not a normal island. It's called Isla de las Muñecas, which means the island of the dolls. And you guys, when I say dolls, I don't mean cute, pristine little toys. I mean hundreds, maybe thousands of decaying, broken, and terrifying dolls hanging from the trees. Their limbs are missing, their eyes are gone, their plastic skin is covered in dirt and webs. It's a literal nightmare. The story behind it is just, it's so sad and so creepy. The legend says that decades ago, a little girl drowned in the canal near the island. The island's caretaker, a man named Don Julian Santana Barrera, found her body. Shortly after, he found a doll floating in the water, and he assumed it belonged to her. To honor her spirit, and some say to protect himself from her ghost, he hung the doll on a tree. But one doll wasn't enough. He felt the girl's spirit was still restless, still haunting him. So, he started collecting more dolls. He would find them in the trash, in the canals, wherever he could. He spent over 50 years gathering these dolls and hanging them all over the island. He believed that each doll was a vessel for a spirit, not just the little girls, but other lost souls. He created this shrine, this monument of decaying plastic, thinking he was appeasing the spirits that he felt were all around him. He lived there alone, surrounded by these silent, watching figures for half a century. Can you even imagine that? Living day in and day out with thousands of pairs of glassy, empty eyes staring at you from every direction. Visitors who have been to the island say the atmosphere is just heavy, oppressive. They say you can hear whispers in the wind, that the dolls move their heads and open their eyes on their own. People claim they've heard a little girl giggling in the woods even when there's no one else around. It's like the dolls are watching your every move. The sheer visual of it is enough to give you chills. Pictures don't even do it justice. It's this landscape of pure, unfiltered nightmare fuel. Every tree is adorned with these grotesque figures. Some are just heads impaled on stakes. Others are limbless torsos swinging gently in the breeze. It's like a graveyard for forgotten childhood, twisted into something monstrous. The air is thick with the smell of damp earth and decaying plastic. It's a place that feels fundamentally wrong. And the story gets even darker. Don Julian dedicated his entire life to this island, to these dolls. He isolated himself from the world, completely consumed by this obsession, this belief that he was caring for these spirits. He became a legend himself, the hermit of the Doll Island. He was the sole guardian of this incredibly bizarre and unsettling place, a place he built with his own hands out of trash and tragedy. He truly believed the dolls were alive. He would talk to them, care for them, even move them around to different spots as if they were his children. He thought he was creating a beautiful, safe space for the spirits, but what he created is, to most people, one of the most terrifying places on the planet. It's this intersection of tragedy, mental illness, and the supernatural that makes it so profoundly disturbing. And here's the part that it gets me every time. In 2001, Don Julian was found dead. He had drowned in the exact same spot in the canal where he said he had found the little girl's body all those years ago. It's just, what? How is that even possible? It's so poetic and so horrifying. It's like the story came full circle in the most tragic way imaginable. After his death, the island was left as it was. It's now a tourist attraction, if you can call it that. People travel down the canals on boats to see it. Some even bring more dolls to add to the collection, to continue Don Julian's work. But many boat drivers are reluctant to get too close, especially at night. They say the island's energy is too dark, that the spirits are not peaceful. So you have this place born from a tragedy, cultivated by one man's obsession for 50 years, and ending in an equally tragic and mysterious death. The dolls are still there, rotting, watching. Are they just old plastic? Or did Don Julian really invite something in? Are they vessels for restless spirits, or just a monument to one man's grief and madness? I don't know, but the thought of being there after dark, oh my God, no, absolutely not. All right, you guys, if you thought the Island of the Dolls was dark, this next one it's on another level. We're going to Japan, to the base of Mount Fuji. There's a forest there called Aokigahara. It's beautiful from a distance, dense, green and lush. But it holds a very, very dark reputation. It's known around the world as the Suicide Forest, and it has earned that name in the most heartbreaking way possible. For decades, Aokigahara has been a place where people go to end their lives. It's the second most popular place in the world for suicide, after the Golden Gate Bridge. The sheer number of people who have died there is staggering and deeply, deeply sad. The forest itself is so dense that once you step off the main path, it's incredibly easy to get lost. The trees grow so tightly together that they block out the sun and the wind, creating this eerie, unnatural silence. There are no animals, no birds chirping. It's just quiet, a dead quiet. Compasses and GPS are said to be unreliable there because of the rich deposits of magnetic iron in the volcanic soil. So you have this combination of silence, darkness, and disorientation. It's like the forest itself is trying to trap you, to keep you there. It's a place that feels designed for despair. Local authorities and volunteers do regular sweeps of the forest to find bodies, but because it's so vast and dense, many are never found. Instead, you find remnants of people's last moments. Tents, letters, photographs, and personal belongings are scattered throughout the woods. There are also ribbons and tape tied to trees, which people use to mark their path so they can find their way back if they change their minds. But often, the tape just leads to a tragic scene. The history of the forest is steeped in dark folklore. It's long been associated with eerie, which are the Japanese equivalent of ghosts or spirits of the dead. Local legends say that in ancient times, during periods of famine, families would practice ubasut, which is the horrific act of abandoning an elderly or infirm relative in a remote place to die. Aokigahara is said to be one of the places where this happened, and the forest is believed to be haunted by the vengeful spirits of those who were left to starve. So you have this pre-existing layer of paranormal lore, this belief that the forest is already full of angry, sorrowful ghosts. And then you add the immense concentrated sadness of all the modern tragedies that have occurred there. It's like a magnet for negative energy. People who have gone into the forest, even just as paranormal investigators or hikers, report feeling an overwhelming sense of sadness and depression wash over them. They talk about hearing disembodied screams, cries, and whispers. They see shadowy figures moving between the trees just at the edge of their vision. There's a palpable feeling of being watched, of not being alone. Many believe that the eerie in the forest are not peaceful. They are angry and sad, and they try to lure people deeper into the woods to convince them to stay and join them. Signs are posted at the entrance of the forest in Japanese and English, urging people to reconsider. They have messages like, "Your life is a precious gift from your parents, and please think of your family." They provide a phone number for a suicide prevention hotline. It's a stark, heartbreaking reminder of what this place has become. It's a battlefield of despair, where authorities are actively trying to save lives at the very edge of the woods. The forest's reputation was solidified in the 1960s after a popular novel was published where a character commits suicide there. Since then, it's become this infamous cultural landmark for the darkest of reasons. It's a place where the natural beauty of the landscape is completely overshadowed by the human tragedy that permeates every inch of it. The trees themselves are said to be filled with a malevolent energy, nurtured by decades of sorrow. Thinking about it is it's profoundly upsetting. Each piece of tape, each abandoned item, represents a life, a story of immense pain. And whether you believe in ghosts or not, that level of concentrated human suffering has to leave a mark, an echo. Aokigahara isn't just a creepy place. It's a place of immense tragedy that deserves respect and solemnity. It's a chilling reminder of the fragility of life and the depths of human despair. It's a place I would never, ever want to set foot in. Okay, so we're leaving the forests and going to Italy. Venice. It's known for being romantic, with gondolas and beautiful architecture. But just a short boat ride away is an island with a history so dark, it's been called one of the most haunted places on Earth. This is Poveglia Island. And you guys, this place is literally off-limits to the public. The Italian government forbids visitors, and fishermen refuse to go near it because they're afraid they'll pull up human bones in their nets. The darkness of Poveglia started centuries ago, during the Roman era, when it was used to isolate victims of the plague. But it got really bad during the bubonic plague, the Black Death, in the 14th century and later. Venice was hit hard, and to stop the spread of the disease, they started shipping anyone with symptoms to Poveglia. It wasn't a hospital, it was a death sentence. They were sent there to die, away from the healthy population. Imagine being ripped from your family, sick and terrified, and being dumped on this island with thousands of other dying people. There was no hope. It was a place of pure misery and death. The bodies piled up so quickly that they had to dig these massive pits, these plague pits, and just throw the bodies in. It's estimated that over 160,000 people died on this tiny island. They were often burned in giant pyres to try and stop the contagion. The soil on Poveglia is said to be 50% human ash. 50%, let that sink in. The ground you would be walking on is literally composed of the cremated remains of plague victims. The sheer scale of death and suffering that occurred here is almost impossible to comprehend. The island became a massive open-air grave, saturated with the pain and terror of tens of thousands of souls. But the story doesn't end there. Oh no. In the 1920s, they built a mental hospital on the island, a mental hospital. On an island known for being a dumping ground for the dying. What could possibly go wrong? The patients immediately started reporting that they were seeing the ghosts of plague victims and hearing horrifying whispers and screams. They were terrified, but of course, the doctors dismissed their claims as just part of their mental illness. This is where it gets into like full-blown horror movie territory. The hospital was run by a doctor who was, by all accounts, a complete monster. He was fascinated by the new procedure of the lobotomy, and he used his patients as guinea pigs. He would take them to the hospital's bell tower and perform these brutal experimental surgeries on them with crude tools like hammers, chisels, and hand drills, all without anesthesia. It was pure torture. The screams of his victims would echo from the bell tower across the island, but no one could help them. He was a sadist, performing these horrific acts under the guise of medicine. The other doctors and nurses knew what was happening, but they were too afraid to stop him. The legends say that the doctor himself eventually started being tormented by the spirits of the island, both the plague victims and the patients he had tortured. They say the ghost drove him mad. He was dragged to the top of the bell tower by an unseen force and thrown off. A nurse who supposedly witnessed it claimed that he didn't die from the fall. As he lay on the ground, writhing in pain, a strange mist or fog swirled up from the ground and choked him to death. The mist, from the ground that is 50% human ash. It's just insane. After that, the hospital was shut down for good in 1968, and the island has been abandoned ever since. The buildings are decaying, being reclaimed by nature, but the bell tower still stands. Visitors who have snuck onto the island, like paranormal investigators and TV crews, have reported some of the most intense activity they have ever experienced. They capture disembodied voices screaming, "Leave." They get pushed and scratched by unseen forces, and they feel an overwhelming sense of dread and anger. One of the most famous reports is from the host of a paranormal show who claimed he was possessed by an angry spirit while on the island. The energy there is described as not just sad, but malevolent and violent. It's like the centuries of pain have festered and turned into something purely evil. Poveglia isn't just haunted, it's considered to be sick, infected with its own dark history. No wonder they don't want people going there. It's a place where the dead do not rest. Okay, so for our next location, we're going to one of the most beautiful and famous cities in the world, Paris. But we're not going to the Eiffel Tower or the Louvre. We're going underground, deep underground. Beneath the bustling streets of the City of Light lies a dark, sprawling labyrinth known as the Catacombs of Paris. It's an ossuary, which is a fancy word for a place that holds skeletal remains, and this is the biggest one in the world. This isn't just a few bones in a crypt. This is a 200-mile network of tunnels, and huge sections of it are lined, floor to ceiling, with the bones and skulls of over 6 million people. 6 million. That's more than double the current population of the city above it. It's a literal empire of the dead, hidden right under everyone's feet. When you go down there, the walls are not made of stone. They're made of human femurs, tibias, and skulls, all stacked in intricate, decorative patterns. So how did this happen? Well, in the late 18th century, Paris had a major problem. Its cemeteries were overflowing. They were so full that bodies were becoming exposed, leading to the spread of disease. It was a huge public health crisis. So the city decided to do something drastic. They chose the ancient limestone quarries that ran beneath the city as the new resting place for the dead. For decades, starting in the 1780s, they undertook this massive secret project. Every night, wagons covered in black cloth would transport bones from the city's cemeteries through the streets of Paris to the quarries. It was this solemn, eerie procession that went on for years. Priests would chant and say prayers as they moved millions of skeletons from their graves to this new underground kingdom. Can you imagine the sight of that? The section that's open to the public is just a tiny fraction of the whole network. The rest of it, known as the cataphile territory, is illegal to enter. But of course, that doesn't stop people. Urban explorers, artists, and partygoers sneak down there all the time, navigating the dangerous, unmapped tunnels. And that's where things get really creepy. People get lost down there, like permanently. The tunnels are a maze. There are no lights, no cell service. If your flashlight dies or you take a wrong turn, you could wander for days and never find your way out. There are stories every few years about people who went down and never came back. In 2017, 2 teenagers were lost down there for 3 days before they were miraculously found by rescue dogs suffering from hypothermia. They were lucky. Others haven't been. And then there's the paranormal side of it. I mean, come on. You're in a maze of tunnels lined with 6 million skeletons. Of course it's haunted. Visitors and cataphiles alike report all kinds of terrifying experiences. They hear disembodied voices whispering in French, they feel cold spots, and they feel like they're being touched or followed by someone they can't see. Some people have reported seeing shadow figures darting in and out of the bone-lined corridors. One of the most famous stories is about a video camera that was found deep in the illegal part of the catacombs in the early 2000s. The footage on it shows a man exploring the tunnels. At first he seems fine, but then he starts to get panicked. He begins to run, breathing heavily, as if something is chasing him. The tunnels become a blur. You can hear his terrified sounds. At the end of the tape, he drops the camera and it films the ground for a few moments before it cuts out. The man was never identified or found. Whether that footage is real or not, it captures the absolute terror of being lost down there. It's a place that represents death on an industrial scale. The sheer weight of all those lives, all those stories, all packed together in the dark. It has to create some kind of energy. The walls of skulls seem to watch you, their empty sockets following you as you walk past. It's profoundly unsettling. The entrance to the public tour has a sign above it that reads, Arrête, c'est ici l'empire de la mort, which means, stop, this is the empire of death. And they are not kidding. You are leaving the world of the living and entering a realm built from its remains. It's a humbling and terrifying experience. It reminds you that beneath the beauty and romance of Paris lies a foundation of bones, a silent, dark city of the dead that is waiting just below the surface. All right, for our last location, we're coming back to the USA, to Estes Park, Colorado. Nestled in the Rocky Mountains is a beautiful, historic, grand hotel. It looks majestic and inviting, but this is the Stanley Hotel, and if that name sounds familiar, it should. This is the hotel that inspired Stephen King to write The Shining, and the real hotel might be just as haunted as the fictional Overlook. So, the story goes that in 1974, a young Stephen King and his wife Tabitha were on a road trip and ended up at the Stanley. It was late in the season, and they were the only guests in the entire massive hotel. They stayed in room 217. That night, King had a terrifying nightmare about his young son being chased through the hotel's empty corridors by a fire hose. He woke up in a sweat, and by the time he finished his cigarette, he had the basic plot for The Shining in his head. But the hotel's haunted history started long before Stephen King checked in. It was built in 1909 by Freeland Oscar Stanley, the inventor of the Stanley steamer car. And it seems that F.O. Stanley and his wife Flora never really left. Guests and staff frequently report seeing their spirits dressed in old-fashioned clothing, overseeing the hotel's operations. F.O. is often seen in the lobby or the billiard room, and the sound of Flora playing the piano is frequently heard from the music room when no one is there. They are considered the good ghosts, the owners just checking in. But there are other, more active spirits. The most famous paranormal hotspot is the very room Stephen King stayed in, room 217. The story dates back to 1911, when the hotel's chief housekeeper, a woman named Elizabeth Wilson, was lighting the gas lanterns in that room. There was a gas leak, and an explosion sent her flying through the floor into the dining room below. Miraculously, she survived, but she broke both her ankles. She continued to work at the hotel until she died, and her spirit is said to have returned to her old post in room 217. She's a very old-fashioned and proper ghost. Guests who stay in the room report that their belongings are unpacked for them, their clothes are folded, and items are tidied up. But she doesn't seem to like it when unmarried couples stay in the room together. People have reported feeling a cold force get in between them in the bed. She's just a very traditional spirit, I guess. The fourth floor is another major center of activity, particularly for children's spirits. Guests often hear the sounds of children running, laughing, and playing in the hallways late at night, only to find no one there when they open their door. Room 401 is said to be haunted by a spirit named Lord Dunraven, the man who owned the land before the hotel was built. He's reportedly a bit of a creep, known for standing in the corner of the room and for stealing jewelry from guests. Then there's the concert hall, which is considered by many staff members to be the most active building on the property. A ghost named Paul, a former handyman, is said to haunt the place. He's known for interacting with tour groups, flickering the lights and whispering, "Get out" to people backstage. There's also a ghost of a young woman named Lucy, who seems to be a stowaway or a runaway, and people sometimes capture her image in photographs there. The hotel completely embraces its haunted reputation. They offer ghost tours, they have a resident psychic, and they play the Jack Nicholson version of The Shining on a continuous loop on one of their TV channels. They know why people are coming. They come for the history, the beauty, and the chance to have their own paranormal experience. And many of them leave with a story. People report closet doors opening and closing on their own, lights turning on and off, and seeing full-bodied apparitions in the hallways. Photographers capture strange orbs and mysterious figures in their pictures all the time. The hotel has a binder full of guest experiences and photos that they share on their tours. It's not just a story, it's an ongoing phenomenon that people experience almost daily. Unlike some of the other places we've talked about, the energy at the Stanley isn't usually described as evil or oppressive. It's more mischievous, active. It's like the spirits are just living their afterlife, coexisting with the guests. But still, the thought of being alone in one of those long, empty corridors at night, hearing the faint sound of a piano or children giggling, it's enough to make your blood run cold. It's the perfect example of how a place can be both beautiful and deeply unsettling. The grandeur of the hotel is the perfect mask for the strange and unexplainable things that happen within its walls. It proves that ghosts don't just haunt dark, decaying ruins. Sometimes they check into a luxury hotel and never ever leave. I don't know about you guys, but I'm officially creeped out. From decaying dolls in Mexico to an entire underground empire of the dead in Paris, these places are just wow. The stories, the history, the sheer weight of the tragedy and mystery surrounding them is just on another level. It's fascinating and absolutely terrifying at the same time. I feel like I need to go watch some cartoons or something to clear my head now, because that was a lot. I'm not sure I'll be sleeping tonight. Each one of these locations has its own unique brand of horror. The tragic sadness of Aokigahara, the violent history of Poveglia, the iconic spookiness of the Stanley Hotel, they all stick with you in different ways. I honestly can't decide which one is the absolute worst. They're all nightmare fuel. But I have to know what you guys think. Which one of these places creeped you out the most? Was it the dolls, the bones, the ghosts? Let me know everything in the comments below. I'll be down there reading them with all the lights on. Thank you guys so much for going on this dark little journey with me. If you're into this kind of spooky, mysterious content, and you want to see more, please give this video a huge thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss what's coming next. Share this with a friend who you'd want to be trapped with in one of these places. Or maybe one you wouldn't. Alright, stay safe you guys. And maybe sleep with a nightlight on tonight. I know I will. Bye.